Are you interested in learning how to hunt? Well, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency has a special section on their website dedicated to getting first-timers the information they need to get started. Log on to tnwildlife.org to learn more. On this episode of Tennessee Outdoor Journal, at Bart Camp Barrens Wildlife Management Area, TWRA is taking down one type of forest to make room for another type of forest, one that's great for all wildlife. TWRA takes some folks on a bird hike on Short Mountain in Headwaters Wildlife Management Area. It's an all-around great day to be outside enjoying wildlife. It's time to get on some Red Ear Sunfish, what they call shell cracker. So we'll go fishing on Old Hickory Lake with Doug Marcum and Barry Cross.
How's that look from down there, Josh?
Next, what does artificial bat habitat look like? We'll find out.
It's a stronger solar panel.
Then we'll visit Wayne County, where problems with wild hogs are on the rise. You know it's time for some high-tech hog traps. Let's get on it. And finally, TWRA is educating the future by bringing knowledge of our natural resources to the next generation. Tennessee Outdoor Journal is opening the cover and inviting you in for a behind-the-scenes look at the work being done every day by your Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. Let's turn the page. What kind of legacy will we leave when our days upon this earth are gone? Tell me who will carry on this work that we've begun, care enough to be the keeper of the dream. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Tennessee Outdoor Journal. Let's start this episode off with a story about logging for quail.
Today we're on the Bart Camp Barrens Wildlife Management Area. Bart Camp is one of the 4 statewide quail focus areas. We're harvesting timber off of 170 acres. We're doing a lot of habitat work on the stuff that we've got, but being able to increase the usable ground requires timber harvest. The plans are to come back and burn this on a rotation. We're increasing our habitat base for quail here. Cutting trees, it's a drastic measure, but what comes back in its place is an early successional habitat that provides great quality habitat for not just quail, but for deer and for turkeys, for a whole host of songbirds, small mammals. The early successional habitat provides a larger food source, a larger habitat source than just the average forest. If you look at a topo map of Coffee County and parts of northern Franklin County, it'll have the Barrens across it. And the Barrens historically were early successional habitat, scrubby habitat. This landscape stays wet. The bedrock is close to the surface here, so it doesn't drain very well, but the Indians knew that, and the Indians kept it burned off on a regular basis, and this was a huge hunting ground historically. So what we're looking at here is an area that was cut 2 years ago. We were able to come in and burn right behind the harvest to clear up some of the log and slash and stimulate the seed bank. Everything on the right side of this mowed strip 2 years ago was trees. It was a forest. And through the timber operation, we were able to increase our early successional habitat base.
You didn't put it out there?
We haven't planted anything out here. These are the little stick tights that you walk outside and come back in, they'll be all over your pants. These make great quail habitat. Excellent food source. Lots of bugs on this, invertebrates. get all over it. Excellent food source for baby quail. The partridge pea, again, excellent food source for the quail, and great habitat structure underneath for a bird that makes his living hiding from everything else. This is a great place for him to get in and hide in and do his thing during the day without having to worry about overhead predators coming in. So the seed's in the seed bank. You know, a lot of the native stuff, that stuff is there. It's in the seed bank, especially in the forested areas. You know, if it were an agricultural field that's been farmed for years and constantly sprayed, maybe that seed bank is been depleted and it's not there. But here, when we take a forest and remove the forest and put sunlight on the ground, that seed bank responds with this. So once we've got it to this point, we'll maintain this for fire. We'll come in every 2 to 3 years with a fire rotation. We'll burn it alternating. Sometimes we'll burn it in spring, sometimes we'll burn it in the fall. That'll keep the woody encroachment out, but we'll maintain this for fire. We're hoping to have different stages of habitat as much as possible here. Rarely do things thrive in a monoculture. You know, if you have just forest, you're going to have some things, but a lot of the species that we have here in Middle Tennessee, the deer, the turkey, the quail, those are edge species, and they've got to have different habitat types in order to thrive. And having mature forest and having early successional fields, that's going to benefit everything.
Our next story, non-game or wildlife too.
We're actually right here, we're at the foot of Short Mountain. Short Mountain is an outlier of the Cumberland Plateau. In fact, the top of the Short Mountain is the same elevation as Crossville, Tennessee. This is a unique area. There's actually Mountain Creek that runs right here, and that's part of the stream. One of the 3 water sources is where this area, Headwaters, got its name. If you go across this ridge, water there falls and flows into the Caney Fork River. This right here, water that falls here and Mountain Creek will flow into the Collins River. Every bit of the water that falls on that side of that ridge you can see right there flows into the East Fork of the Stone. We came out today just doing a bird walk here around on Short Mountain, just local folks out of the community. Yes, that's an indigo bunting. I call these birds, when I first started knowing these birds, I call them the mountain bluebirds, but they are indigo bunting in the same family as the goldfinch. I like my little birds, and I have for a number of years. Of course, I guess I got that passion from my mother, always having bird feeders up and watching the birds come in the wintertime, but learning more birds that are here during the summertime that we don't see all year round, and that's many of those birds are what we were looking for today, especially many of the warblers. But I heard a wood thrush, which if you hear a piccolo playing in the woods, it's the wood thrush. I'm gonna see if I can't get that worm-eating warbler to stick his head up. I hear a towhee out further out this way. The part of my job that I really enjoy is educating others, whether it's on wild turkey, whether it's on trees. All this is one leaf, and you can see the leaves are alternate, but this is the yellowwood. Beautiful yellowwood, a lot of carving done on it if you can get to the right size. So if I can impart some knowledge on something that I know to someone that doesn't know, or give them an appreciation of it, or why it's not a good thing to kill or to destroy a certain habitat, you know, I do enjoy that. Snakes, many people are hurt themselves getting away from snakes. We found a small ringneck snake up there, probably the most harmless snake that we could run across today. You know, snakes are part of the landscape just like anything else. They have a niche to serve. To birders in general, the song is the bird. You know, there's a very few birds out there that may sound like another, But depending on the habitat, you'll know that bird from one from another. Many of these warblers, once you see movement, if you don't get at them and get an ID on them real quick, you're not going to get a good ID, especially in a dense habitat. You don't necessarily have to see that bird, but if you can hear that song and you know in your mind's eye, okay, that is a blue-winged warbler. That song is unique to that bird, so you know you've identified a blue-winged warbler when you hear his song. Here, and we should see some birds down in this moving around. A day like this, satisfaction comes from getting out into something that I can have a direct effect on. You know, this Headwaters WMA is land that's protected. It's really protected and used for hunting, but all the birds that I hear around me are using this as habitat, and this land is managed for that purpose for the game, but the non-game is such a big part of it. You know, I can hear 10 different birds singing behind me, and they're using the same habitat that the deer and turkey use. So knowing that I'm here protecting this area or promoting this area for the use of game, but then non-game is a big part of it as well.
Next up, shell cracker fishing.
If you're going to do anything in this life, I don't care what it is, if you're going to do something, it helps if you've already got somebody that knows how to do it so that they can kind of teach you, help take the learning curve and straighten it out a bit. Today I've got Doug Marcum. He is the communications manager for TWRA, and he tells me he knows how to catch red ear sunfish, commonly called shell cracker.
Turn left, then the destination is on your right.
Okay, so I've made it to the lake. I've got my good friend here, Doug, who's going to show me how to catch shell cracker. Is that right?
I hope so. Shell cracker, red ear sunfish.
We're gonna catch something, but we're going after red ear sunfish, and it ought to be a good day. I don't know exactly what to use, Doug, but you got boxes and boxes of stuff.
That's right.
What are we gonna tie on?
Well, we're looking for shell crackers or big bluegill, whatever we can get. And you know, a lot of folks buy crickets berry and they buy worms, great baits, night crawlers especially for shell cracker, but I don't usually do that. I usually do the artificial stuff. So I buy little small grubs, or there's something called a trout magnet. Don't let the trout get in your way because it catches everything. And just a little plastic bait. And small baits don't cost very much. Small heads, you don't need a big head. 1/16 ounce. If you don't know what that is, it's written on the boxes when you go buy them.
That's like a trout magnet?
That's a trout magnet, and I like to go dark colors for these shell crackers and bluegill, but if they don't bite these today, we'll go light color and see what they do. But this is the time of year where the shell cracker and bluegill get ready to spawn, and really fun to get out there and get them. And you'll find that you don't always have to buy a cricket or a night crawler and all that and get your hands all dirty. You just find something like this and toss them on real light line. Don't make the mistake of using heavy line. 4-pound test is a lot of fun. Little bitty reels. Put some line on it, light line on it, and just cast real slow toward the bottom.
All right.
That's where the beds are.
So we're catching shell cracker, right?
We're going to try to catch shell cracker. There ain't no right to nothing.
We're targeting shell cracker.
I've always found out if I target something, I always catch something else. So let's target them. Let's target bass.
Decent. I think it might be a crappie.
How about your gear, Doug? I mean, do I need to go buy a bunch of stuff if I'm going to do this?
Oh no, if you're getting out for the first time, there's a lot of really good rods that are out there. You do want to get graphite. Just get you a small reel and again light line. And then the graphite's light in your hands. It's a lot of fun. You need if you read on the pole itself, it'll say medium or heavy or medium light. You want to get probably a medium light to a light if you're just going to go after these little fish. It just makes it a lot of fun. We're experimenting, trying to find out if they want to bite today with us slowly dragging it on the bottom, or if they're wanting to bite under a bobber. I've seen some days you can catch them one way and not the other. That's something on right now. Yeah, and that's what we're looking for today. We kind of got to look at this spot. When you find a shell cracker, it don't always happen, but they like to bed together, and they often bed in really small areas, sometimes right next to bluegill, and oftentimes they start before bluegill. And they're called Red Ear Sunfish because of this right here on this flap. Kind of orangish red, it's beautiful. And they like to eat shells. They're in close right now because they're getting ready to spawn, but when they go back out deep water, they'll eat a lot of mollusk, and they're out there eating on that stuff. They have a real tough throat in. They can crunch those shells and eat them. But today, this one just ate a jig. But this is not their day today. They're going back today, right, Barry?
That's right.
So we like to do catch and release a lot too, especially a beautiful fish like this.
Time of day play into anything with shellcracker?
The what?
Time of day? I mean, does that play into it at all?
I've caught them all day long. I don't know, it could, but I've caught them in the middle of the day, caught them mornings.
So what you're saying is it's still fishing?
It's still fishing. Always is. If you find a good bed, it's catching.
Oh, me.
What you got there?
Little bass, little bass.
You can get all that in-between stuff sometimes. That's fun.
This is not a shellcracker.
They're black bass. If you're out and catch one of these, and oh, they get so much bigger. But that pretty little stripe right there, this is a black crappie. And we have white crappie and black crappie in Tennessee. This is just a black crappie with a mark on it. And we actually stock these. Now what is this? This is a drum. Oh, I was going to talk about him. You just never know what you're going to catch.
We never really got on that stockpile of shellcracker beds where we were going to catch shellcracker after shellcracker. It may have been a little bit early for that to happen, but we did have a lot of fun, and that's the one takeaway I can leave you with is if you're going to go out and you fish with somebody you enjoy spending time with, odds are it's going to be a good day whether you're catching what you meant to catch or you're catching bluegill or whatever. It's just a lot of fun.
Shellcracker! Hey, put your shirt back on, man. I'm trying to do video here.
Our next story is about artificial bat habitat.
And our bats now that are hibernating in caves, many of them are being impacted by this disease, white nose syndrome, and they have their young in the spring just after they emerge from their caves. And the survivors of white nose syndrome especially are stressed, and they are often in a poor health condition.
A lot of suitable natural roost trees that you do find in the woods, they're ephemeral. They last between 2 and 3 years. And once that tree becomes unusable, it may still stand, but all the bark will fall off. And so this is an alternative that provides that structure standing for an extended period of time with bark over a longer period of time than what you'd find on a landscape in a natural setting.
Artificial bark. So it's textured on the inside so the bats have something to hold on to and crawl up on.
This product's called Brandon bark. It's provided by a contractor we deal with quite a bit, Copperhead Consulting in Kentucky. And this product is supposed to mimic bark of dead trees. And what happens when a tree dies, the bark itself will pop off, and we call it sloughing. And so over time it pops, it breaks, it falls off. But before it falls off, when it pops off the bole of the tree, it creates a void for the bats to get up underneath, establish a colony, and raise their young.
Our Middle Tennessee landscape has changed a lot in the past couple hundred years, and there's just generally a lot less older and dead trees in our forests, and those would be trees that bats like to use and like to have their babies in. And so we installed these sort of artificial dead trees out here today and give Indiana bats specifically, which are endangered species, a site that would be useful to them.
The Nature Conservancy paid for the materials, but then I managed to find another partner outside of TNC and TWRA that came in, assisted with erecting the poles and helping us put the bark on the utility poles. We're doing as much as we can in the winter when the bats are having the highest declines because of white nose syndrome. So the next step would be to provide or protect as much summer habitat. The lack of habitat can cause an added stress to bats that could further the decline when they're out spending resources looking for roost where they once were, and so that could add to the decline. So we're trying to provide more habitat in the summer.
How's that look from down there, Josh?
Good. As a management tool, I think the use of this type of structure will increase over time. They've had really good success with it in other states. The bats seem to really like it, and just the bang for the buck seems to be really high.
Hey, let's learn about high-tech hog trapping.
The hog problem in Tennessee is much worse in regions 3 and 4, which is the plateau region and further over into East Tennessee. Region 2, when we started, had pockets of hogs here and there. Wayne County was a pretty large pocket. So we started here 4 years ago. I think we've come pretty good ways with it. We still have a hog problem, there's no doubt. We don't get as many calls as we used to. Damage is #1 problem. Damage to people's yards, people's gardens. Any row cropper in this area of the county has damage, and they'll destroy it. They're invasive species. They don't belong here, so they don't really fit into that niche in the ecosystem. Whereas the deer and turkey, they naturally belong here, so they come in, they don't cause any problems, they just fit right into that ecosystem. And the hogs are a completely different story. So they rob all the other wildlife of food also. You know, acorns under oak trees in the fall, you know, they'll clean up a whole patch of oak trees, and then the deer come along and they don't have hardly anything to eat off of that section of trees. So those are the 2 main problems with them there. Trapping, in my opinion, is the best way to deal with them. Because when they come here, they get comfortable with the trap. We know they're here, we're watching them here, and they all go in, drop the gate, and you've caught, you know, 20, 30, 40 hogs, versus sitting out here with a couple of guns and shooting maybe 5 or 6 in the night, and then you just scattered, you know, 30 or 40 hogs. So trapping is probably the #1 way to get rid of them.
A lot of trial and error, talking to the guys in the field, finding out what they thought needed to be improved upon. Hook it up, positive, negative, just 2 simple wires, and then I put that second switch where they can flip a switch, read their voltage.
Rodney's been absolutely essential. He's taken the system and built it pretty much from the ground up.
You know, nobody in the area had any system close to this. This is a one of a kind.
These traps and the camera system has helped us a lot.
This is a fob receiver, trips the voltage relay to trip the full 12 volts to the actuator.
When we first started, we were sitting on traps and blinds, you know, 2, 3, 4 nights a week trying to catch pigs. If they didn't show up, you wasted, you know, 6 hours that night.
This is a stronger solar panel. The camera is on 24/7, solar powered, converts to infrared at night. You can set up a motion detection zone specific to one spot. You can adjust the maximum height and width of an object or the minimum height and width of an object. And with the analytics of the camera, it's intelligent video. It picks up that size object that you set, and until it sees it cross that threshold, it will not send an alert to your email or your text. He can trigger from his phone, tablet, laptop. Any time you log on, you have access to the drop button.
Now I can sit at home, or I can sit at the office or in the truck down the road, watch it on my phone or the computer. If they don't show up, turn the laptop off and go to bed. If they show up, then drop the gate, throw the uniform on, jump in the truck and run out here. It's Rodney's worked very hard on it and got it to where it's a lot easier to use, officer friendly, time friendly. Doesn't take near as much time as it used to now to use them. And we catch a lot of hogs with it. It's done a really good job.
We'll finish this episode off with a story about educating the future.
First, we're gonna start with a pop quiz, okay?
Okay.
Does anybody know what the state bird is?
Yeah.
Anybody tell me? Just yell it out. Yell it out.
A bald eagle. Bald eagle.
That's a national bird. What about the state here in Tennessee? Well, this is Farm Days here in Wilson County. Communities come together and create opportunity for second graders all across the county to come and learn about agriculture and natural resources. Now, what's the state mammal?
Raccoon bird.
Raccoon, very good. This is a raccoon right here. And so today we're here teaching about some of the mammals we have in Tennessee. Two things I want y'all to remember about a skunk, okay? This end bites, this end stinks.
But officers do a lot of programs now, very diverse in the things they do. Not only do they do hunter education and boater education, but they also do programs with schools. They also do talks with outdoor groups and organizations and try to educate the public as best they can, not only on the wildlife that's out there in the state of Tennessee, but also habitat issues and just keep the public up to speed as best we can on our changing wildlife.
If you have somebody else in the boat.
Here recently, you know, I've probably spoke to over 1,000 kids in the past week. So it's turned out to be your law enforcement, and that's our main objective. But we also go out and teach kids about the wildlife, about our natural resources.
We've got the test for wildlife. You're gonna have 30 identification. I have a degree in wildlife. We use that in our day-to-day job, both for species identification as well as habitat management. You all are welcome to touch them, just make sure they go back to the right spot. Every time I do one of these programs, we have several people who will come up to you and ask, how did you get your job? Where did you go to school? What did you do to get into that position?
When I talk to school groups and people, you know, in general about what this agency does and some of the stuff that I do, the first words out of their mouth are, I had no clue about that, or I had no clue, you know, y'all did that, or I had no clue we even had that in the state of Tennessee.
I think education wildlife makes people care because they learn a little bit about their habitat, and so instead of looking out their window and saying, oh, there's an animal in my backyard, they say, oh, that's a red fox walking through my backyard. That's really cool.
A lot of kids are growing up with cell phones and video games nowadays. That's where having these programs is a great thing, you know, to help them to interact with nature and learn about it, and hopefully they will go home and start to explore a bit more of what's actually out there.
I think giving our young people in Tennessee good knowledge about the outdoors and the wildlife species that we have just bodes well for the future.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Tennessee Outdoor Journal. We'll see you next time. Tennessee Outdoor Journal is produced by your Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. Tell me who will carry on this work that we've begun, care enough to be the keeper of the dream.
Hi, I'm Charlie Daniels. When I was a kid, I loved baseball and football and all kind of stuff, but my favorite pastime was when my daddy would get me up early in the morning, we'd go hunting or fishing. Out in the fresh air on the water or back in the woods, and you learn a lot. You got kids, take them hunting, take them fishing. Join me, buy a hunting or fishing license. Let's keep wildlife in Tennessee. That's a doggone good thing.
Buy your license today at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lawrence, just letting you know that the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency supports itself and manages all of the state's wildlife with the dollars invested by hunters and fishermen when they buy licenses. If you've never bought a license, but appreciate the abundant wildlife we enjoy in this state, I encourage you to do it. Start with the Type 01. It's a great investment in Tennessee wildlife. Learn more at tnwildlife.org.
Buy your license today at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.